Hello students, Miss Sebastian here again. I'm so excited you're here to join me on another adventure in my studio. Today we're going to learn about a fantastic pop artist who doesn't really want to be known as a pop artist named Jim Dine. And we're going to see how he took popular everyday items like brushes and made them into fine art. And then we're going to make our own wonderful artwork to go along with it. Stay tuned to the end and I'll give you some interesting facts about the history of brushes too at the end of this video. All right, without further ado, let's learn about some Jim Dine. We are talking about the fantastic art of Jim Dine. He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio on June 16th, 1935. If we did the math where you take this year, 2020, and you subtract 1935 from it, how old is Jim Dine now? He is 85 years old, and he is still making art today. In fact, Jim Dine has pretty much done everything. He started off as an abstract expressionist artist, and he did a lot of happenings. Happenings are where you put together this art show, and it's rather spontaneous a lot of the time. And sometimes you can get people involved in the show too. And then they're creating art with you. And that's really like what a happening is. So if he, for example, had a canvas set up at a park and he was inviting people to come up and throw some paint on it, and he was throwing paint and swirling around, that's a happening. He has met and shown with all the big pop artists, including Andy Warhol. Klaus Oldenburg was one of his besties growing up. Fantastic pop artist. He's done sculpture, painting. He's into photography right now in realism. So he himself says he's not a pop artist, but what he does a lot of the time is he takes popular everyday things and uses those objects and elevates them in his art form. And I'm going to be focusing in on one particular series that he's done. But when he was growing up, he wound up spending a lot of time in his grandparents' stores. And I think they were probably hardware stores because he does a lot of hardware items in some of these artworks. We're going to be looking at paintbrushes today. So we're going to move on to our next slide. And so I have his artwork here. And so if you look closely at it, you can see that they are all paintbrushes. He calls these 5 paintbrushes fourth state. I think that's more of a way of him categorizing his artwork and being able to know when each artwork was made at what point in time. But be an art detective with me and think about what the shapes are that you see. Yes, I know they're paintbrushes, but look at all their handles and all the different shapes that are there. Why do you think this artist didn't use color in this artwork? Why is it just done in black and white? Maybe it increases the contrast of the artwork. Maybe you'll focus in on the brushes instead of the handles that hold them. Look at all the great lines and movement that those bristles have in this picture. And there's also a little bit of scribble in the background too. So I wonder why he left that in or included that as part of the picture. Why do you think the artist makes pictures of paintbrushes and why not something else? Well, we do know he does do other things as well, but for this particular series, we know he did the paintbrushes, a symbol of all painters everywhere and many artists indeed. So what kind of lines did Jim Dine use to make his paintbrush artwork? Of course, we got straight lines, zigzag lines. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wavy or curvy line in it. There could even be some loopy lines, and thin lines or thick too. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to have you draw in pencil 5 paintbrushes lined up next to each other. If you have a Sharpie, you're welcome to go over those pencil lines with Sharpie as well. I want you to think about if the handles will be long, short, or wide, or skinny. Think about if the bristles will be long, short, angled, wide, or skinny. And then add a different color paint for each brush on the bristles. If you don't have paint at home, but you've got markers, no problem. I'm going to show you how to do that too. So here is a student example that you can see here. And you can see how the color kind of, I think, adds a little bit to these pictures. And you'll be able to choose those colors too. Will my brushes be turned this way? Or will I be turning my paper this way with my brushes? Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. A great artwork looks great upside down. It looks great right side up. It looks great left and right. So without further ado, if you need to freeze the video on this particular slide so that you can look at some examples of paintbrushes as you create your artwork, you are welcome to do so. Now, back to my studio desk so I can show you how to do this wonderful artwork with one of the most symbolic tools of artists everywhere, the paintbrush. Things for this lesson that you'll need includes a piece of paper, a pencil, you can have optional Sharpie, and then you'll need something for color. And if you don't have markers or paint, you could even use crayons if you want it for this lesson. Both of these paints and the Crayola markers work great though. Don't forget your cup of water and your creativity. All right, for this project to get started, I'm gonna first use my pencil and kind of plot out where I'm gonna put the brushes. It's up to you if you want the bristles going up or the bristles going down. If you turned your paper around, it would be the other way for sure. I'm gonna start off with a light line near the middle. Because I'm going to do 5 brushes, I know I'm going to have 1 in the middle and 2 on each side. So I'm going to put 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Now, I think these look best if you do a variety of brushes, but you can choose how you want to do your own. You might have some that have thin handles. You might have some that have very wide handles. Maybe I'll have one that's super long and thin. Again, I'm drawing lightly with my pencil so I can always go back and erase. Maybe this one will be kind of short and wider. And then I'll just have maybe a more normal size medium brush here, handle. All right, so now that I have my handles, I am ready to do the bottoms of them. So a lot of brushes have different kinds. The wider ones will usually kind of flare out, come down, and then you'll have the bristles that come down from here. Sometimes there'll be a little metal bar that's here too, and it's really going to be up to you. You can look at those pictures that I've posted in the video previously. You can just pause it on that and look at the different brushes if you can't think of your own to put in there. Maybe this one has a hole so it can be hung up by a nail. And I like when I do the bristles, I just press down and then I lift up, down, up, down, up. This way the bristles are always going in the same direction, and it has that kind of feathery look that Jim Dine got in his pictures. It's a little darker near the base because maybe those hairs haven't fallen out yet. All right, so that might be one. And then I'm gonna do another one here. Maybe there's some metal here. Maybe this is a number 8 brush. Maybe this is pointy. Could be a liner brush. This one might be a little wider. Maybe we'll have a smaller holder for that. And I can put a couple of little rings holding it all together. Maybe this one will be angled. There we go. I can erase the very bottom to make those all kind of line up. All right, and then this one will be just a pointer, just a regular small pointer. And then this one will be a fan brush. If you watch Bob Ross, then you probably know about fan brushes. Okay, now, the next step is, I like to go ahead and just outline it to have a good outline there. And we're gonna do a little shading too as our next step. But let me go ahead and just get my Sharpie, and I'm just gonna go over a lot of these lines that I already have. Now I've left one brush unoutlined because if you don't have a Sharpie, that's okay. These still look really good. So instead I'm just gonna press really nice and hard with my pencil. Make a good outline of everything you have that you wanna keep. And then you don't wanna use black Crayola markers for this. Only because if you did, it would smear with the paint that we're going to be adding in. So again, if you don't have a Sharpie, that's okay. Just leave it as a pencil outline. But the advantages of using a Sharpie is this. If you see here, I'm going to add a little shadow in here. Rub it with my finger a little bit. And now you can see how it looks like there's dimension to this picture, that there's a shadow hitting the light source is coming this way, and there's a little shadow underneath that brush. Now, if you were gonna do it here, you can still see the effect, but it might not be quite as dramatic as if when you had that Sharpie there. But both ways are great. Don't use a regular Crayola marker though, because you're gonna wind up getting some problems when we add the paint to the picture. All right, let me finish this up. Now in the original pictures, they had some little paint splats on there that they had a little highlight on. And then these two would also maybe get a little bit of shading in there also, a little bit of shadows. But that's up to you if you want to include those or not. And again, if you want to use your Sharpie to outline them, that's okay too. I probably would not outline the highlight though. I'd probably just leave that white as the paper is. All right, so for our next step, if you have paints, oh, I've already got my first splat on there. Yay. My paints are jumping to get onto this picture. They are so excited. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush really good because obviously I had some paint left on it. And I'm gonna choose a color. I'm gonna choose orange. And then I'm just going to hit the tip of that. And look, you can also do a few little of these where you just kind of flick it on there. And hey, you know, if you wanna bring that out, because it looks like the paintbrush started this line and then it got laid down flat, you can do that. I'm gonna do a blue. Just gonna be on the tips of that brush. And it's like somebody forgot to clean that brush and it left some paint down below. Now, if you didn't have paint and you wanted to use just markers, that's great too. You would go down at the bottom probably here, add some markings, get some water on a brush or a finger, and you can make that also spread out. You may have to add a few dots though with your marker if you want to have that sort of paint splatter effect. Okay, I'll do one more of those marker ones. Let's see. I think we need some purple in this. And you can see how that kind of spreads out. Nice. And then I'll just do one more. see. Ooh, that red got everywhere. It's a strong color. And then for these up here, you can either color those in and leave them like that. Or if you're going to paint them in, make sure that when you paint, you are using the tip of your brush to do fine detail work. And there we go, our finished project. Oh, I hope that you enjoyed that Jim Dine inspired artwork on paintbrushes. Our interesting fact of the day is that, did you know that people have been using paintbrushes to make artwork for at least 2.5 million years? During the Paleolithic era, artists would often paint things like animals or people on the walls of caves of Spain and France. And we also know that ancient Chinese people used them to create beautiful calligraphy writings on scrolls. So remember, always love one another, do something nice for someone in your house today, and keep on making great art.